make my favorite muffins, Morning Glory muffins. These muffins are loaded with a lot of good stuff. They stay so nice and moist because of the apples and the carrots in there. They're such good tasting muffins. So my recipe, when I show you at the end, I do have a single recipe and a 1.5 times. I like to do 1.5 times because that makes almost 2 dozen muffins. So we're going to start with 1 1.3 cups of oil and 4 to 5 eggs, depending what size your eggs are. So I have 4 eggs and an extra egg yolk just because I used egg whites for my Kaiser buns earlier. So between 4 and 5 eggs. So if you have the small eggs, maybe use 5, but if you're using large, you can use 4. And then we have some molasses. This gives a really nice flavor. 4.5 tablespoons of molasses. Get that all out. It's very slow. And I have 3 teaspoons of vanilla extract. I like to use a pure vanilla. I have 2 apples grated up, which is about 2 cups, and I have 3 carrots, which is about 3 cups of carrots. So I have all this just grated ahead of time. We're going to put all of that in there. You don't even need a mixer for this recipe. This can all be mixed up by hand. I'm just going to mix these wettish ingredients here first. Alright, and now we're going to add in 3/4 cup of coconut. So I have the shredded coconut, mine's unsweetened. I have 3/4 cup of chocolate chips. The original recipe called for raisins, but I don't like raisins, so chocolate chips it is. And I have 3/4 cup of walnuts. You can use other nuts. I just like walnuts because that's usually what I have in the house. And I just gotta make sure I do the right amounts. I have 3/4 teaspoon of salt, 3 teaspoons of baking soda, and 3 teaspoons of cinnamon that I'm gonna add in. I have 3/4, there's a lot of ingredients. 3/4 cup of white sugar and 3/4 cup of brown sugar, and I've got the darker brown sugar today. Sometimes when it goes on sale, I like to buy that one instead of the yellow sugar. Just gonna mix this by hand before I put my flours in. Because when you're making muffins, the flour, you want to have that the last ingredient, and you don't want to overmix when the flour is in. So I just want to make sure this part here is mixed up really well. All right, so I have 1.5 cups of white flour, and I'm using 1.5 cups of rye flour. So I have a package here to show you what this looks like. I'm using just the Rogers white rye flour. You can use all white flour or half white, half whole wheat, but that rye flour gives a really nice flavor. So I've got the 1.5 white and 1.5 rye. So you just want to mix this. You don't want to overmix, but you do want to make sure all your flour comes in together here, so that you're not going to have all white spots in your batter. Get right down to the bottom. Trying to get it all without over mixing. We just want to get to the point where we've got all of that together. Looking pretty good. Right down to the bottom. And we're going to get these in the muffin tins. I have my oven preheating to 375 degrees. And I'm using my muffin scoop that I like. This is my 2.5-inch diameter scoop. Just helps keep all your muffins the same size. So it's not quite going to be 2 dozen here. And the one-time recipe is just over a dozen. So I just didn't want to, if I'm going to use my second muffin tin anyways and have to clean it, I might as well fill it with muffins. So I'm going to get this in the oven. They're going to have to bake probably pretty close to 25 minutes. So check them at 20, but they'll probably need a little bit longer, 25 minutes, and I'll show you what they look like. They're definitely worth worth all the work that you have to put into them with all the grating of the ingredients. It takes a bit more time to get it all ready, but these muffins taste so good, and they're so full of goodness in there with all that carrot and that apple and the shredded coconut and walnuts. They're so good. So I'll get these baked up and I'll show you what they look like. Muffins have been in for 25 minutes. I let them cool for a few minutes in the muffin tins before I took them out. So just make sure you grease those really well, and if you don't want to grease them, you can use your paper muffin tin liners. But I like to grease them so I don't have to peel off the liners all the time. So here's your Morning Glory muffins. They are delicious. I have my recipe down here, so you can do a single recipe, and that would probably make you about 13, maybe 14 muffins. And then the 1.5 times recipe I think I did 19 muffins today. So give it a try.